Welcome back everybody to the channel. I've got the custom chin splitter video that's going down right now. Right off the bat, I want to apologize for the sweaty glossiness, the rough clothing and everything. Guys, it's 100 and something degrees here in South Texas. I am not going to be wearing any clothes that I ain't got to wear. I've already done one kind of like rough edit of the chin splitter. You've probably seen that rough edit. Of course, all the locals, everybody around here has already seen me running that chin splitter. Problem I had was I made it out of 3/16 ABS plastics. That ABS plastic with the heat, the sun and everything coming down on it, and driving down the highway at about 80 miles an hour, didn't do too well. After doing all the Cletus and Cars filming and stuff, which was a massive fail. If you haven't seen that video, click right here. I noticed that the chin splitter was bowing down real bad in the front. Today I'm actually going to be filming how I did it and kind of showing you more or less the ins and outs if you were to want to make one for yourself. Hopefully you can watch this video, learn from my mistakes, and not have to pay for one twice, because I ended up paying for twice the materials, of course, because the first one was a fail. As usual, just on the go, 100 miles an hour, day in, day out. And anyway, I'm running on about 6 hours of sleep and still got to somehow produce content and all this, so here we go. For those of y'all who haven't seen my other videos, this is ABS plastic. This one right here is 1/4 of an inch thick, and most ABS comes in black. I think you can, sorry about the wind noise, I think you can get it in different colors. Most sheets come smooth on one side and textured on the other side. I'll show you the original chin splitter. This is the texture on the other side. You can see it real good. I'll let the camera focus. Anyway, so you can see the texture in there, and then on the flip side you got the smooth finish. So anyway, when I do this one, I'm probably gonna do it smooth side up. I do like the texture, but I think the smooth side gives it a much cleaner look. And so what I've done is I went ahead and traced the outline from the original onto this one. So I've got an outline traced out onto here. And to cut this stuff is fairly simple. All you need is a jigsaw with a pretty mean tooth, you know, a wood blade, not a metal blade. I thought I could get away with using a metal blade because, you know, metal blades, they got more teeth. I'm gonna take this inside so you can hear me over the wind. With the wood blade, you got the big gnarly teeth here, and that actually works a lot better for cutting ABS versus the metal blade. I don't have a metal jigsaw blade on me, but what I do have is a metal sawzall blade. You can see on there all the tiny teeth. You would think that would make for a better cut, and it does make for a better cut, but the problem is the blade itself is so narrow and it's moving at such a speed that with those small teeth, it actually fuses the cut back together downstream of your actual cut. So anyway, what I ended up figuring out was using this one, it takes a big enough chunk out that it doesn't fuse it back together back behind it. So there's one of the lessons you'll learn in this one that'll save you. For the chin splitter, what I ended up doing was I ended up popping the lower valance off. I don't know if you can see it very well, of course it's real dim. Ended up popping that lower valance off and putting the plastic up against it nice and solid. Put that plastic up underneath it. I slid it out after I got the outline of the actual front bumper and the you know, the curvature here. And once I got that outline, I slid it out about 6 inches. I just kind of sketched my own little curve to kind of follow the bumper here to get it to form back up into the 6 inches out here. So that's how I ended up doing the stencil for the chin splitter. Once I got it stenciled out, then I cut it with a jigsaw and I hit the edge with an orbital sander to knock down everything. And you can see all these marks and everything right here. These are my lessons. You probably won't have to go through these after watching this video, so you won't have to worry about stuff like that. So doing the support rods, this is the bolt for my support rod here, is a little bit tricky. It's kind of hard to get those bolts into the bumper where you might want them. In order to get those support rods lined up and make holes on your splitter, what I ended up doing was waiting until the splitter was mounted onto the truck. I already had these bolts here, and I took that support rod and I threaded it onto my bolt, and I just let gravity do its work. I just dropped it and kept dropping it, and I would mark where it landed each time. And by the time I was done, I mean, it only took me a few seconds, I had probably about a 3/16 area of where that support rod should go, and I did it on both sides after the splitter was on, and then I marked that where center that support rod was going to go on that splitter. From there, then I could position it and lengthen it and figure out how far out I really wanted it to come and square it up, and then make my mark and knock my holes out for my support rods. That's how I ended up lining all that up. Alright, so now that we've gone through all that, I'm going to go ahead and throw the battery for the camera on the charger and get the camera set up to where you got a nice, you know, decent little angle. I know my sawhorses are kind of wonky here. It's really not that hard of a task, so I didn't really spend hours setting up for it. Anyway, I'll get the camera set up and everything, and you can kind of watch me jig this out. But one thing I might add, metal on plastic doesn't do too hot, and I didn't want to leave a bunch of gouges and stuff in my plastic. What I ended up doing was putting a bunch of layers of this painter's tape on there, because like I said, I want to use the smooth finish up, and I don't want to see all the runs from the actual deck on this thing kind of cutting into the plastic as I'm making my cut. So, because you know, it's an osculating saw. So as it grabs that plastic, it's going to be sitting there slapping this against it, you know. So you got to do the best you can to not mar it up. Basically, I'm going to be just running this thing basically I'm just going to be running that thing around some plastic. I mean, it's really not that hard. Before you do any kind of power tool use, remember to use some sort of eye protection. I know these aren't exactly the best, but it'll be perfect for what I'm doing. Alright guys, so I'm pretty sure you can't see my lines too well in the camera, but what you want to do is make sure your jigsaw stays nice and tight to the plastic. If it's allowing it to come up and down like this and slap against the guard, it's going to cause more scarring and marring against the plastic, which you don't want. So what you want to do is take your hand and kind of follow the line you're trying to cut and support it. Also make sure with that hand that you're following that line with, make sure that hand does not get into the blade. If you get your finger down in there, you're going to chop it off, of course, so just be mindful where your hands are at all times. So, just wanted to show you here, you can see where this is starting to melt. Right here it started off pretty good, it started cutting nice and smooth, and it started to melt here, and that's because that blade's finally getting hot, and you can see the marring I was talking about. Now this stuff right here is extremely light, so I can get this out. This is just the adhesive off of that tape that I put on there. I'll just wipe it with a little bit of cleaner, and that'll come right off. But yeah, so that's where your plastic's bonding back together, so you need to make sure you keep the plastic or your blade nice and cool, and you need to cut. What'll help do that is cutting nice and slow, or taking some cold water and just kind of squirting it with some cold water as you're going along. So anyway, we'll continue on, and I'll just try to do my best to keep it from re-adhering. Alright, so the first side of this splitter is done. I know I kind of moved this out of frame. The first side of this splitter is done. I'm going to try to flex it and see if I can't get it to pop apart right here at the seam. There we go. Nice and easy. Flex it there. Alright, so what I'm left with, bring this over here in frame. What I'm left with after flexing it is this little piece right here. Of course, it melted back together. So I'll just take the jigsaw like this. Clean that edge up. Now all I gotta do is come back through with my orbital sander and kind of polish that up a little bit and be nice and smooth. Got into my sawhorses there, come back over here, support it again, start again. I don't know if you saw that last part there, but I got into the wood I have supporting this, and I started bringing some sawdust up. Alright, so pop that loose. Go ahead and flex this just like we did the other one. There we go. Flexing on YouTube already. Alright, simple as that. Now we'll come back with the sander and we'll start smoothing these edges down and start making this form kind of nice and smooth. Alright, so for the sanding, I'm using a 40 grit sandpaper. I don't know if you can see that there, it's a little dark. For the sanding, I'm using a 40 grit sandpaper on my DeWalt orbital sander. What you want to do with the sandpaper is you kind of want to stay off of this surface. You can already see how it's lightly scuffed. We can fix that. It's real simple to fix. But what you want to do is start sanding right here, and you want to start taking some of this hard edge plastic off and start smoothing some of this out, and that 80 grit's going to do that for you. Alright, so there you have it. That's how you make your own custom chin splitter. Now, I will come back with a like a 160 grit instead of this 40 grit and kind of get some of that scuffing and stuff off of the edges and off the top side like you saw. I'll probably hit it with maybe 1,000 or 2,000 grit to get it all one nice smooth surface. Here, let me flip it back over. So I will come back and hit it with another grit to kind of get some of the scuffing out of some of this stuff from the factory. But that's basically it. I mean, you can see I got a little bit of fine touch-up work. Don't be scared if you get kind of a jagged edge. Take that sander with the 40 grit and you can kind of smooth it out. You know what I mean? That 40 grit will do a lot of work for you. I will mention that I noticed with this 1/4 inch, something I didn't have a problem with on the 3/16 is the sander is actually remelting that ABS. So if you sit in one spot for too long, you're going to start melting that ABS and it's just going to start bunching back up on you. So make sure that you kind of, you know, give that spot some time to air out as you're making passes over it. Don't just sit there and hover on it forever, because that's what happened to me and it kind of melted it. I was able to get it out. All I had to do was make steady passes over it instead of sitting on that one spot. So anyway, hopefully the next video I make of that chin splitter will be installing it on the truck, and I'll show you how to be able to install that chin splitter. If I have made that video, the link will be right here already. And if you haven't, guys, make sure to smash that like button down at the bottom. Hit subscribe. We'll catch you next time. Rep 361 Texas, we're out.